Hello, hello. How is it going, everyone? How you been? Oh, might have the title wrong. I see. Thank you for the heads up. I will update it later on. Yeah, I been changing a couple of things here on the setup and also on the streams. Before it was once every week, and now it will be once every 2 weeks. But yeah, hello everyone. This is Godot Tomorrow. I'm Emilio, and yeah, let's jump into it. We have some things, especially I think a lot of you are excited for the 4.7 release. Excuse me if you hear some sort of noises from outside. There's some local celebrations here where I lived, and there might be some firecrackers at any random moment. Um, so yeah, let me see. Can I change the title live? Well, anyway, let's go. I will change it later. All right. So this is the main website. I know I already covered this, but I want to go over again. As you might notice, we have a new release, and now the releases of the snapshots show in a different section here at the bottom. That's to leave more room for the regular blog post and stuff, which they were getting like buried under the different releases. So we now have those separated. And you might notice as well that we have some new games in the background. There has been a huge update. Adam did a PR recently, so you will see like new games being showcased here. It's been a bit long overdue. Um, Let me here. We have here the showcase. I don't know how many of you have visited this recently, but yeah, it got added like a lot of new games here, so you can check to see. Like a lot of people want to know what has been made with Godot. So these are a selection, not all of them, of course, but just a small selection of the games that the community has been building. That we're proud of that they exist, and we want to give them a little bit of the highlight here as a spot in our website. We might overhaul this in the future. I feel it's a bit difficult now to browse. There's too many things, but cool thing is that you can filter here by platform, and this is also another way for us to say like, yes, you can have games in the different like consoles if you want to. It's just you know not something that a lot of people know even today. So it never hurts to remind people that you can do it. But yeah, check them out. There's a bunch of new games there, and we also did like an interview to the game developer Mike Klubnika from Backshot Roulette. And this interview, it's very common. You might have seen different ones in our blog following this structure, which we ask the developer of the game, which was their experience, the reasons why they use Godot, if they like it or not. And I think it's very insightful to see like what are developers, especially from these successful games, how they get how they got into it and what their thoughts are about making games and stuff like that. I think it's a very good thing to learn, and also to model after, because you might be in a similar situation that they are that they are at the moment. You might be like them, and you never know how far along you are in the process. um, there's also like some new game that he released, which is like Split. So some images from there. I think it looks quite good. I think he's refining his style, and I'm looking forward to what he builds next. But yeah, if you want to read it, please visit it on the website. And also, I would like to thank him again, because he also recently became like corporate platinum sponsor, which we have our development fund here where you can donate and join, and we have many people who are making games or who have companies around Godot who donate, and this is how we are able to hire people to work on the project. So yeah, we have mic here alongside the big players of the space. So it's quite cool. All right. Let's see the chat a little bit. Blog post about compile time reduction will be good. Yeah, there's been a lot of progress. I've seen many new PRs and benchmarks about building speed, and I think it's improving a lot. But I don't know if you mean about compiling the engine itself or exporting the games. So that might be different. But yeah, that could be interesting. I also wanted to remind you, all of you, there's a conference in April in Amsterdam. If you want to join, you can submit your proposals. We already had a lot of people submitting their talks and all that. That's great. But now we are also asking for your help, if you want to, of course, to join as a volunteer. I will leave a link here if you want to join. There's some questions here that you can answer, and it will help us, find some people that might be interested in doing some work, either with the photography of the event, with the check-in of the guests, with the speakers on the stage, maybe audio or video. So if you have anything to contribute, feel free to write. You will get cool t-shirt and a ticket for the conference. So if you were on the fence and this might make you change your mind, please consider it. And now let's go to what people are here for, which is the dev snapshot. This time in a very creepy thumbnail with the game horripilant by past games, which I've seen in the chat before that people 4.7 already. Yes, we've been working, of course, since 4.6 on the featured release. So when the first beta release, came out. Since then, we've been working on 4.7 because everything that's new, that's not a bug fix, goes to the next release. So it's been already a few months that it has been under development. This time, we have a bunch more new things. This one I was very excited about. I honestly didn't know it was in the making. I usually have like a good idea of what's being done. But yeah, this one that allows you to copy and paste properties from one category to another is very useful, especially if you did, like you change maybe the size of something and the position and things like that. Yeah, you can right-click copy, right-click paste on these sections, and you don't have to go one by one, which is a nice life of nice. Today I cannot speak. A quality of life improvement. So yeah, definitely one of my highlights, 100%. The other one is a little bit more about correctness, which is very easy if you see this image, but more easy if you see the next one, which is that many times when you're in the editor and you're connecting signals and stuff like that, we showed the name of the function, but with a regular font, the one that you use for the rest of the editor. So this is a bit confusing because usually when we are talking about code, you want the mono spaced font, which is the one that every character has the same spacing, and that's the same you use in the editor for scripting. So I think this gives you a better idea about the properties, or like the variables, like the functions that have this actual one-to-one value to some code. So you have a better idea of, this is the name maybe of a category of a node, something like that, but this is the final name that you're going to have in code. I think it makes it clearer for you to connect those two concepts. But yeah. I assume the copy-paste properties also work with categories from custom nodes, yes? Yeah, it should work with that. I haven't tested that myself, but if it comes to the inspector, it should come to any property from the inspector. That also includes the custom properties. The next one, it's the collapse groups in animation track editor. This one also might not be a big deal if you're a very casual animation player user, but as soon as you have a lot of things in there, it gets a bit overwhelming. So being able to collapse them is, again, more quality of life improvements, which are always nice. HDR support for Apple, for Mac, I believe only. I'm not sure if it's also iOS. I think not. Oh yeah, to all Apple platforms. Yeah. So HDR, as in the previous release we had and the previous snapshot, only for Windows. Now it's also for the Apple platforms. So I believe we have Android and Linux left to get HDR, and that should be all of them. I'm not sure how many people are using HDR here, but if you really want to use it and you know how it looks like, I think it will be pretty cool. There's been a lot of talk about how useful this is in games or not recently. And while many people might not be super on board with games using HDR, I think there's a lot of people who are using also HDR for other sort of installations or demos or other sort of software who would benefit from it, and it's good to have it. So I have fake HDR on my Chinese monitor, says Player Dev. Nice. I do have proper HDR on my monitor. I don't think I've ever used it, but every time I see a demo, I think the value it has. It's good to have it. One thing though that everybody will have to deal with whenever this gets implemented is that you will need to expose a lot of those settings to the end user, because depending on who your users are, they will need to toggle some things on and off and play around with it. And that's how it's HDR in general in everywhere. And that's one thing that I wish it was easier. So there was only one thing you enable and that's it. But yeah. This is for all the Steam Deck Switch OLED people. My monitor pretends to know HDR. Yeah. Oh, hello, Wilds. Faye Wilds. How you doing? Nice that you were able to catch a stream. I'll be honest, I never seen HDR in action. It's more contrast between white and black. Yeah, basically, the thing with HDR, it's I don't know if you used a high refresh rate monitor. When you have a high refresh monitor, you cannot go back kind of to the way it was before, because everything else looks very bad. Like if you're using 60 hertz monitor, like you're running everything on 60 fps, it's okay. And then you go to a 120, it's like, oh yeah, I see this one is double the frames, looks much nicer. Then you try to go back to 60 and it's like, oh my god, how can anyone use this? So with HDR, it looks the same. Like once you enable it, if it's well supported in a game or a movie or whatever you're watching, you enable it and it's like, oh, this looks nice. And then when you turn it off, it's like, was this supposed to be like this? All like so dull, so little contrast between elements and all that. So it's, yeah, I think it's hard to describe, and I cannot show an image here because it will not work. And the problem is with the support that it has, right? So not a lot of people are going to be able to take in advantage of that. But yeah. Then, of course, in the and more section, you always should look through this because there's good like gems here. Add a scene painter tool. This one, I was surprised that it also made it in. There were many plugins to do this. Basically, it's a way for you to... Oh, okay, I cannot make it bigger. But you can just paint as if it was on the tilemap editor, but using scenes. So if you really if you don't want to make like a super complicated setup with tile maps and all that, you can start doing this for very simple games. I think it's very valuable. And this touches my heart because, you know, I learned how to make video games using Game Maker, and in Game Maker, you're basically doing this all the time. So it's quite good. of course, if you want something that's performant and something bigger, you might want to use the tile map and the tileset editor. But if you're just sprinkling around some scenes, um, that should be good. And yeah, I get the question there: is the scene painter only 2D? I believe so. Yeah, yeah. For the 3D, there will be improvements on the grid map, which is like the tile map editor but for 3D. But I don't think that the painter will come to 3D. Yeah, no, I see here in the conversation in the same issue, like if people are asking about the 3D, I don't think that's there. And then Sirael is saying basically like waiting for a 3D equivalent. I think the grid map, once it gets improved, it will be a good equivalent. But yeah, not at the moment. This seems like a symptom of tile system being cumbersome. Yes and no. I think you cannot make it. I mean, yes, you can still improve it. You can make it less cumbersome, but not everyone will need the tile map, all the features that you need there. If you're just sprinkling around some things in your level, if you're making a very simple puzzle game, if you're doing all those sort of things, I think setting up the tile map system to do that, it's an overkill. Uh, but on the other hand, if you're making an RPG or something like that, like typical, grid-based game, then yes, tile maps make sense. So I think it's just finding the right tool for the job. But yeah, what kind of improvements there will be in GridMap 3D? I'm doing the Q&A in the middle of the, but yeah. So for the grid map, there was a lot of improvements that were quality of life as well, but also small bugs like not being able to undo some like changes, or how you show the elements that are selected and how you movement. Like many of those things of just the day-to-day use were a bit broken, abandoned, and there were PRs already. So we're basically taking over all the ones that were completely abandoned and taking them, putting them up to date, and making new ones based on feedback that people has. There will be a lot of them. I don't know how we're going to present them in a way that's going to be easier to see. But in general, a lot of people just wanted to use it, and it was really abandoned. It was a bit broken here and there. So fixing different icons that were not doing what they were supposed to do, and many things like that. So it would be nice maybe once we finish with all this process to maybe make a blog post specifically about the improvements there, and to also invite for the conversation of what people want to see next. But yeah, for now I can say people are working on it. But yeah, I see Annie reacts asking, will it work with every 2D node? I assume it's about the painting. Yes, it should work with any node. Like you're basically placing it on the scene. It's the same as if you were to drag and drop the scene into another scene, but it's an easier way of doing it. But yeah. Okay, let's see some others. Follow selection in 3D editor by using center selection twice. So this one was like, what does this mean? But once you see it in action, it makes a lot of sense. So you can select a node, right? And when you center it and you start moving it, the camera moves with you. Because if you ever move this and you have a big scene and then you really you lose where you were supposed to be and all that. I think this one is also another incredible quality of life. There are many things like this that you're expecting it to work this way, but it doesn't. So yeah, seeing it working, it's great. So more quality of life, and yeah, with snapping and everything. So yeah, quite nice. I think, and I don't know why more editors don't have this, but I would appreciate if every editor could have like a sort of Minecraft mode to move around and to edit stuff like that. I know it's very limited and there's many things you cannot do, but I think that you can get like 90% of the way there, and then start using like the regular editor to make levels. That would be my ideal way of making levels, but yeah, the closer we can get to a nicer experience, the better. And yeah, other changes that are not so pretty to see here on the screen, but yeah, more quality of life in the class names for the remote inspector. I believe I talked about this one. I don't know if it was here or it was somewhere else. But yeah, many times instead of like showing the name of the custom class in the remote, so when you're playing the game and then you check on the tree, you didn't see that. Now you see it. And yeah, add support for SDL3 joystick input driver for iOS. So I think for the input in general, like we're slowly unifying thanks to Nint Torch for all this work. We're slowly unifying everything under SDL3. I believe in the future this will make more sense, right? Right now, different platforms use different systems just to work better, and the more we unify in a library that works, the better, because it's going to be less differences between them. And yeah, some more. There's always a lot. If you want to check the interactive change log here, you will see all the changes that happen. And yeah, in the future, we might start doing blog posts a little bit more like this. I don't know if I talked about it, but yeah, I feel like not a lot of people come in here and check them. So maybe bringing this a little bit more into the front lines will be better. Okay, let's see what else do we have. Oh yeah, and the game that we highlighted there, it's quite interesting. It's like an auto battler. Yeah, but very creepy. Very good concept. The art is incredible. People seem to like it. Haven't played it, but it has a lot of positive reviews. So yeah, check it out. Horripilant. And I think now we can go to the Q&A section of it. I don't have much more news, and I see people asking already. There were some questions unanswered in the forums, so maybe I can go to answer those first, and then I can move to the chat. I see there's many people asking already, so yeah. Okay, so I don't know if I answered this one. It feels very old, but I also wanted to address. I haven't been posting the links to the streams on the forum, and that was an oversight. Just forgot to do it when coming back from the break, and I should go back to it. I didn't know that so many people were just checking them out only because of the forum. I assumed people subscribed and watched it on YouTube, but I will keep posting those on the forums. And one of the questions was, what are your thoughts on supporting guided tours on startup of the editor? Is there interest in something like this for new users, or that want to jump started with the version updates? Okay, so there is already a plugin, I believe. Well, I don't know if it's public, but I know GDQuest has some technology, probably public and open source, to do this sort of guided tours. I honestly always skip them. I don't, even if I need them, I skip them. I know it's terrible, but I must confess, I have to come clean. So I'm not super keen on like saying, yes, let's include something like this. But it might be useful to, expose that a little bit more, make it easier for people that are using that sort of plugin to give a guided tour some guidance. What we do want to add, and that's something that I've heard several people ask for, is a section on the main website about learning how to use Godot, which we don't have, and recommending some tutorials, courses, stuff like that. But I don't think that we're going to include anything inside of the editor yet. We'll see in the future if this changes, but yeah. Then we have question from Saul. I believe I also saw this one on the YouTube comments, so I will read it from here. Question about Godot 5 for the next Godot Tomorrow. Would having something like world streaming, I don't mean mesh texture streaming, be considered something that could be added for Godot 5? I say this, that's a very big... can I stream be sent from the start? I don't know where the parentheses ended, but I assume it's asking about like the world streaming. Yeah. I don't know exactly how this will work. I don't think this is something that will make sense to do only on a Godot 5. I think, if I understand correctly, that this is something that could be done on top of the current Godot, but I don't know the difference because you say like it's not mesh texture streaming. So I think mesh and texture streaming can come to Godot 4 and will be added. So the difference between that and world streaming, it's something I don't really know about. And lastly, 8 from mesh texture streaming, which will eventually arrive, is world level streaming ever planned to be added? It's the first time I hear about world level streaming. If you have more information about that, share it, and maybe, yeah, I will be able to answer more correctly. But yeah, I do know you, Saul. You are always asking about many cutting edge features and things that are very AAA for the engine. I would like to see in which projects you're working on, because there might be like a GTA 6 worthy. The thing is, like, if people don't need this, which I don't believe most of our users need it at the moment, it will be very hard for us to make a case of let's invest half of our funding in hiring people to just do this that somebody thinks is pretty cool, because there isn't a lot of value. I do know that a lot of people want mesh and texture streaming, so that will eventually come. But the other features feel more like something that you could theoretically implement with a GD extension or with how you set up your scenes. But yeah, I don't know. Respite from reality, I saw that your comments about not being able to leave comments on YouTube, and I added you to the allow list on the moderation section, and I've been seeing more comments. I saw you also on the chat before, so it's nice. I don't know really what happens with YouTube. If I try to comment from my main YouTube account, it gets also shadow banned in even in this channel. So, screw you, YouTube. I don't know. But yeah. Passive Star says there's a proposal for world streaming, but it seems to make more sense to fix lower level stuff first. You can easily implement world streaming yourself already. Yeah, that's. I still don't know what world streaming means. If it's like an open world, I see before they comment before. Yeah, a bit. I will need to know a little bit more about what that means. But yeah. Okay, I think those were the comments here. Let's check now on the chat, because I see it's moving quite fast. And if I have time at the end, I can go to the YouTube comments. Let's see. Let's see who we have here. I missed so many. Asset Store news. So there are some features coming. There's always progress. If you check on the store/beta.godotengine.org, you will see like a lot of people are posting assets already there, and there's changes every day. There isn't any news. Like, I wish we were prepared already to have the buying and selling assets on the platform, because it would have been great timing with Unity's news for their own asset store. But alas, it's. I always try to make this clear. Like, our priority is still to make the engine, and that's where most of our effort is going. And the asset store is always something like it's nice to have, but it's not our main project. We are still aiming to having the asset store integrated in 4.7, like in the replacing the asset library tab that you have there at the top. And I think that we will be able to make it on time. That will, of course, require like some maybe backports to other versions and many improvements over the time to make it feel good. But at least an initial version should be added. There's a PR already open, which already includes all this. But since we are still making changes to the API on the asset store, it needs to be kept up to date. But yeah, those are the news I can share about that. Let's see. Don't you already have getting started tutorials in the docs? Says Billy Drink. Yes, we do have the getting started tutorials on the docs, but I think it will be like that would be also a welcoming path. But a lot of people want to see videos. Some other people want to have like a course. So having all those options there and like this is what we have here, this is what other people are making, I think will be nice. And the getting started is like a good place to start. But then if you want something more specialized or something a bit more advanced, many times those are elsewhere in both text and video form. So I think it would be valuable to have them there. My okay. Let's see. I wish I could use GDScript for everything, but the performance just isn't there for heavy per frame simulation processing. Wish it could be compiled to machine code. There are people thinking about the same, and there has been some proposals. The main issue is that every time that a proposal, like a big proposal for GDScript, comes out, this falls short to what most people are using GDScript for. So I think there's very clear, like there's two camps in GDScript. We have one people who want basically C++ with very nice syntax, and some other people who wants blueprints, but I don't have blueprints, so this is the best I got. So please don't make my life impossible. And I don't think these two groups think too much about the others. And the problem in GDScript is that it kind of has to make both happy. You have the users that don't want to specify types. They don't want to make anything complicated. They just want to write a few lines of code to make everything and write a couple of values. Everything should be dynamic and simple, straightforward. You know, I'm an artist, I'm making a game, I'm a level designer and all that. And then you have programmers who said like, okay, can GDScript enums be Turing complete? so it's like, okay, in the middle between those two camps, we need to have like the flexibility to give like you can do these interesting things and more advanced things with GDScript, and also it will be very performant, and also you know you will have all this. But many times when people get more serious about discussing those, it's like, yeah, we can do all this if we make every type of variables be static, and you cannot be changing that. Or to do this you need to make all these changes into core, and then it will finally, after a year of work, it will be worth it, trust me. So it's a bit complicated. Like it is something that will happen, I think. I don't know if that will be a Godot 5 thing or not, because many of these big changes also mean either we have two versions of GDScript competing with each other, like the version that is interpreted and the version that's compiled, or you break the compatibility for everyone else because you wanted this new feature in GDScript or this different way of doing things. I think, of course, there's many things, and I can never go as deep as you probably should in these streams to go into the details. But it is a bit tricky to say that will happen soon. I hope it does. It's in the priorities as I see here in the chat. Yes, like I think it's been for a long time. I heard many maintainers, many veteran maintainers wanting something like this, but it's just not happening because of the work to make it happen and the changes that it might create in the development process or workflow of the people making games. So yeah. Let's see. Passive Star says, "Welcome to Godot. Here's a link to Brackett's channel." Yeah, I mean, could be to maybe one of his videos or things like that, or there's many others that are doing all those things. But yeah, Brackis would be a good a good person to add there. Question: Is implementing web GPU a priority right now? No, I don't think it's a priority. Like, at least at the foundation level, no one is working on it. It would be nice, but yeah, there isn't anyone actively working on it. I think soon we're going to open a new position for the C# on the web to get extra support, because up until now we had only one person working on that. And of course, as you might have seen in every post we have about any release Godot related, could be like a post saying we cured cancer. You will see the comments saying like, yeah, but where's C# on web? And it's like, okay, so we clearly need to move faster on that one, and we want to hire someone specifically to be working on that thing full time. So for web GPU, maybe after that, but I don't know how demanded it is or not. Yeah, let's see. I see many comments having. I'm not sure exactly this one about Mojolang. Building out of Mojolang. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Don't even know what that is, unfortunately. Let's see. When I got into programming, nothing made sense right. What the heck is a global private partial void? GDScript just using var and then letting you specify more later helped me make the jump. Exactly. Yeah. I don't think any of us want to sacrifice that ease of use that GDScript has. Yeah. There's a comment here saying AI. I don't know, but with that casing, it looks like Adobe Illustrator. No, this is about Godot. Okay, we have Made with Science Lab. I just donated $190. Keep up the fantastic work. Been using Godot for the past year, and I just love current state and progress. How can convince our gaming platforms use Godot? Any tips, contacts? Thank you so much for the donation, and thank you everyone who donates. I think for convincing different people or platforms, it depends on what their goals are. Like there's not one single way to convince anyone. Different teams might have different priorities. In this case, the most recent one is something that I always cover about, which is we've seen what happened with the Unity stuff on the asset store that they have, that suddenly all the publishers that are selling assets from China, Macau, and Hong Kong are not going to be listed anymore from one day to the other. Like, you don't know how many people were their livelihoods to do that. And, that's something that can happen at any time when you're depending on a company like that, right? So I think the biggest strengths of open source projects and alternatives to these sort of corporations that are just managing your entire business livelihood, they have it in your hands, is to try to be as independent as possible. And what open source and tools like Godot or Blender or Linux, what they allow you to do is to remain independent regardless of what happens. And even if there's something out of your control, like some geopolitical shenanigans that are affecting you in that sense, you still are an owner of all that code, of all that thing that makes your business work, and you will not be at that risk. There's other risk, of course, but I think that this one it's very important now, and it's been in the conversation lately. So yeah, it depends. If they're a studio, maybe they just want to save some bucks on licenses, or maybe they really want to have control of how the engine works inside, and you can make changes to it. We've seen recently Megacrit, the people behind Slide Spire 2. They mentioned in a Reddit Q&A that they made some modifications for the engine. So they basically did a fork of Godot to specifically address some things for their game. And that's exactly what you want when you are using an engine, right? Like, you want to have that power of going into the code, modify it, and do your own thing. And that's what other engines don't allow you to do. And it didn't take work from us to allow them. Like, we didn't have to go through a process of signing a contract with the lawyers and making sure that all the code was properly licensed to them, and that they had the permission to make those modifications. And no, they just did it because they could, and they wanted, and they needed it too. So I think that those are things like completely different reasons. But it really depends on who you're talking to. But yeah. Compile JavaScript has to be Godot 5 plus, no? Is it possible to make such a massive change without breaking compatibility? So I think, yes, it could be possible if we did something like using GDScript as a GD extension, let's say, which is something that some people has proposed. So the same way you're using C# or Rust with Godot through a GD extension, or Python or whatever other language, we could make a version of GDScript that's like that and that behaves differently. So it is certainly possible, but that's where we are in a scenario where we have to maintain two different versions of GDScript. And if they are different between themselves, if one version allows you to do some things, the other version doesn't, then people, when they see some code online and they want to use it, they will be confused because that doesn't work exactly the same. Even in your own project, maybe you have one script that's built in, the other one that is an extension. So I think it's a bit of a mess. So ideally there would be only one, but that works for everyone. I don't know. I don't know how that can be there. Web GPU is also on the priorities page. Yeah, it is, but no one is working on it. The priority page doesn't mean that there is someone working on each of them. That means that the team in that area, they mentioned that this is something that we want. So if you want to start working on it, you're not going to be working on something that then people are going to say, we don't want this. So yeah. I just want to say Godot's animation editor is awesome. Animating Godot is great in my opinion. Thank you. There's also some updates, some more improvements coming there. There's still a lot that can be done. Unity loves doing bad things just in time for Godot to offer an alternative, huh? Well, yeah, I don't think that's on purpose, of course, but the problem that they have is that they are a big corporation, publicly traded, and there's many things that they need to be taking into account when they are making some business decisions, which are not exactly only about the developers. There's many decisions that are done and they're made by people who are not so involved in the game development process. So the fact that we want to be as close as possible to the end user, so to the developer, we are always trying to make their life easier. That's our main priority. So it seems that way, right? It seems like when they do something bad, we did something good, but in reality, it's where the priority was for each of us. If you're a developer, of course, you're going to find our improvements to be nicer. But if you're an investor, probably like the Unity things that you see sometimes like makes sense for you. And it's like, okay, yeah, the stock is going to go up. I'm happy about that. So it's a different kind of game that we are playing, let's say. Is there any work being done to improve 3D joints for jolt physics? Lunarus Software asking. Um, I'm not entirely sure. If you mean about improvements to Jolt physics, there's probably some improvements that are planned there, but they don't depend entirely on us. If this is something that you mean for Godot itself, I I don't think so. I'm not sure. I would need to check. I think with the Jolt physics integration, the biggest hurdle was to get on par with the Godot physics implementation. Once that got in and we made it the default one, I don't think that there's any active development on new features, but I could be wrong. Um, it was one of those conversations that was like on everybody's tweets, like the C# on web right now. Um, and once it got included, then we didn't hear much at all. So I think it's not a very hot topic. So it's a bit harder for me to know like the latest of that. Um, Also internally, I believe there's still like the same people who did the integration for the Godot Jolt, and the Godot Jolt developer and another maintainer who has been working for a long time in the physics area. They still make improvements. They still make progress, but I don't know if they have like a public roadmap with what they are working on. At the moment, at the foundation, we don't have anyone working in physics, but yeah, our priority is just to expose Jolt as good as possible. Um, okay. What engine subsystem should developers avoid or use carefully if they plan to port a Godot game to consoles later? That I don't know. I never worked with consoles. So if I had to guess, I would say that anything that depends on an external library, like let's say you're using a game that you're running a plugin that you got from the asset library to play videos from FFmpeg, then maybe that's gonna be a bit hard to get. But as long as you're using the vanilla Godot experience, you should be fine. Same as if you're using maybe like an Fmod plugin that somebody made and it's outdated, or I really don't know. Again, I've never done a console game myself, and at the foundation we don't have any of the ports, but I can imagine that those would be like the difficult things when moving there. Yeah. Billy Drink asks, I read about Google Summer of Code. Basically, they sponsored 12-week internships for open source projects. Have you heard about it or have any interest in the foundation joining? So we were part of Google Summer of Code in the past. There were many projects. I believe like the color picker got improved because of it. There was like a Git integration that got done because of it. The main issue we found is that for that to happen, we need to have somebody on our team helping and mentoring those students, teaching them how to navigate the code, how to make those contributions back into Godot. And that took a lot of time away from them, like from the development. And in the end, even if we did get some contributions that were valuable, many of them were not, or they would have been like maybe like a day work for a contractor, to just do properly, and that's it. So I think it's something nice, and it's of course giving the opportunity to many people to work on it, but I cannot really justify it, like the amount of investment that it comes in our end in terms of hours of people working on it, for the benefit that we get. In the future, if we would have more funding, I would love to get more interns, to work on those sort of things, and students that can contribute using programs like Google Summer of Code or Outreachy or others like that. But at the moment, I think it's not something we can commit to. So that's why we never opted to do it again. But yeah. How many devs are working full time on Godot currently? So it's a bit tricky to ask, because let me share the link. Um, So we have on our website, um, on the foundation website, we have here the list of the people who are currently hired by the foundation. There's more, but these are the ones who are not full time, but that they are very consistent, right? Some of them might be part time, but they've been working 6 or more months. Um, so here we have 15 that we have listed here, and there's many more who we hired just for one thing, two things, right? So in total, I think we're around 20 something, 22, 23 people. But that's not entirely the answer, because like how many people are working full time in the project? There's people also working for different companies. So there's other companies like W4 Games, let's say, who are hiring people to work on Godot full time. For instance, you may know Clay, who's the rendering lead. He's being hired by W4 Games, or Remy, or other people who are working for big companies that I cannot name, but that they are hired just to contribute directly to Godot. So I'd say that in total, it would be maybe like 40 or 50, like taking into account all those other people who are working full time in different things about Godot. But the reality is that, yeah, the majority of people who are working on it on a given release are the ones you have on that website, which are the main core of contractors that we have, plus 3 or 4 people who are also like on the board or things like that. So it's hard. There isn't a number I can give. But yeah, it would be like maybe a tenth of the amount of people that get fired every time that I open the news about the gaming industry. That's more or less the amount of people that we have. um, uh, Savidev is asking, that's Argentinian English? Yes, Argentinian mixed with Spanish English. Yes. um, let's see. Uh, are we all ready for tomorrow? Always ready, always waiting for tomorrow. Hey there, are there any plans for decoupling Glow from HDR 2D? I don't know. Not that I'm aware, but yeah, I'm not sure. If you want to know about those things, you should check on the priority list, like Passive mentioned many times before, or also on the rendering channels on Rocket Chat. But yeah. Make the easy online multiplayer support, please. Yeah, I would love for making more improvements to multiplayer support. I think it's a little bit out of scope. We try to give the tools for people to do it, but yeah, it really depends on the game you're making. I do believe that if we did make it better for people to make multiplayer games, we could see more what they call friend slop games being done in Godot. But I also think it's part of the education that we have. So I think that it will be easier for everyone to make more educational content around it, rather than making more systems to provide that. Yeah. How many versions are you releasing per year? 3, 4? So the goal is to make a Godot release once every 4 months. That depends if a release goes longer, shorter, if it starts during the year or not. So I think you can expect at least 3 releases on a year, ideally. So yeah, the ideal kind of cadence is that. And what you have to understand is that we are not. One second. We are not making Godot like, we're not planning like this will be on a release, this will be on another release, this will be on another release, right? We are more or less working on what we are doing now what are the improvements that we can include, what are the things that are happening, what are the things that are already ready for everything, and then we make a okay, up until here, let's stop and let's polish this and publish it, and let's continue working. But there isn't like a roadmap that we have like, okay, in Q2 of this year we need to have this ready, for Q4 next year that we need to have this other thing ready, because we don't have that many projects that are like this sort of long term. There's many things that we want that the community keeps sending. There's many things that the contractors that we hire that are working on. There's things that, you know, platforms decide to make last minute changes that we need to keep up to date. So the releases are more or less like, okay, this is a good window of time. 4 months is a lot of changes. Let's make sure that there is a stable version during that development cycle, and we publish it. So, so yeah, it's not about the number of releases, but more or less like how much time we've been working on them. In the past, there were maybe like a year where there was no releases, and then you release a version that has a year worth of changes, and that's not really something we can afford anymore in terms of like, you know, the speed that people are wanting those releases, the amount of people who is working on it, and what it will mean, right? Imagine if instead of having 4.6 and 4.5, we went from 4.4 to now 4.7. That would be crazy, a crazy amount of changes. And I think it's better to keep it this way. It's also easier for people to slowly be making the transition to the newer versions if they need it, or to find the differences, right? Like, oh, this works in 4.7, but it doesn't work in, sorry, it doesn't work in 4.7, but it does work in the previous 4.6. So we know that something in between those 4 months, there was a problem there. So yeah, I think it's an easier way to deal with the releases. Okay. I just want to again highlight the PR optimize C++ to .NET calls with function pointers but naked Q. GH11, okay, the number of the, okay, would really help Godot C# performance if it was merged. I think it's already in the radar, and it's going to be eventually reviewed and integrated, but yeah, I think we've seen it already, like the PR you mean about the C# thing. Have we beaten the dead horses of anticipated GD scriptures for today's screen? GD features, trades, tracks, project. Yes, we have already talked about GD script in a different way. I'm happy that we had a different conversation. But there isn't any updates. I think there's still like work needed to be done in core for the trades PR to happen, and that's happening slowly, but it's happening. So yeah, I cannot imagine it making it in 4.7, but one never knows. Yeah. Yes, the 4 in 4.x stands for 4 months. Exactly. That's exactly. In Godot 5, we're going to do a 5 months Windows release. Okay, I'm going to take a couple of questions more. We already like, it's already been almost an hour. Yeah, we're getting to an hour now. I wanted to go also to the YouTube comments, but I think I covered the most pressing one there, which was also on the forum. Yeah, if I haven't and you're here, please post it again in the chat. I will read it. But yeah. Will Godot 5 have more efficient engine classes functions binding API? Currently, function calls goes through multiple pointer in directions. I don't think that needs to be like a Godot 5 feature. I think that could be something that gets improved in the current version. And there's always in every release, like, you know, we like to feature here like we like here to show fancy videos with the editor and easy to look images, and wow, this is so popular, let's talk about it. But if you check on the interactive changelog, you will see all the time, I mean all the time, in every release there's performance improvements in all the areas. So this is something that is continuous. um, so yeah, it is something that will happen, but I don't think we need to say like performance is not going to improve until Godot 5, because then nothing will until Godot 5. And still, I know we've been talking a lot about Godot 5 in these streams and in the previous streams, but in reality, we don't want to make a Godot 5. Like, ideally, we would be able to keep improving Godot 4 indefinitely. Godot 5 is basically like a get out of jail card for us to modify something very drastic in the engine. If we can get there without breaking everybody's projects and without causing a massive migration of people from Godot 4 to Godot 5, the plugins that were not updated, the things that are not compatible anymore, the tutorials that are outdated, and all that, if we can avoid it, we will avoid it. So Godot 5, it's only fun to talk about as a thought experiment, but as a more practical way of thinking, like everything that can happen in Godot 4 will happen in Godot 4. Even if we like to wait here in the Godot world. But yeah. Okay. Last two questions. Let's see. Official multiplayer workflows could be more harmful than helpful. Yes, exactly. Better for the community to make multiplayer FPS with anti-cheat template. Yeah, I think better templates is better than letting people, like, telling them what's the right way of doing things, because many of them will start their projects using the way that we said that was the best thing, but for their project it wasn't the best thing, and they will eternally be angry at us. Is there any news about the Godot merch? Please, I want to buy Godot merch. There's the plushie. There's a new plushie in the way. This is a super secret. If you stayed up until now, if you stayed the entire hour, there is a new plushie being designed. You can imagine what it's going to be, of course, but no news yet. And there will be new merch in the GodotCon event in Amsterdam in April. So if you want to come and buy some merch there, you can. Question: is there any chance of pulling in things like Hex grid map pull request now that you guys are working on grid map again? I'm not sure exactly what Hex grid map pull request. Yeah, maybe we'll make it. I think what we made was a working group that's basically specializing on that. If they think it's something that makes sense to add, they will. I haven't seen any conversations about it, but if enough people is interested in the hex map like layout, I think it will happen. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask. But at the moment, there's so many bugs and things to fix that are very simple that those bigger features might come after all these smaller bugs and usability issues have been addressed. Okay, I see nice comments. People saying things that are not true. Nothing has been confirmed. There's an undefined plushie being made. Can I get my wife and kid back with Godot 4.7? No, but maybe with Godot 5. Okay. Based on Tivo's redesign of the Godot logo, maybe. No, I think Tivo's very close to design is very close to the plushie already. So I don't think we're gonna make any big changes for the logo for now. I think I would like to have like Tivo's mascot to be more prominent in the entire website, in the main website, I mean. But I think the logo, it's okay to keep as simple as possible. Yo, 2D now plushie. Just a blonde round cushion. Yes. We're gonna start selling like Control 2D and Control 3D nodes, and the Node 2D as those things that you used to get your hair. I don't know, like the rubber bands. I don't know the name of them in English. But yeah. Okay. that was all for today. We're already into meme territory, and this gets tricky. Just want to say also, like, there was a lot of people interested last week in the AI conversation. I didn't give any updates, but we are working on some different policies at the foundation about how to deal with that. So when we have something, I will bring it here and we can discuss it. Thank you everyone for the questions. Thank you everyone for donating, and hope to see you in the next one. It's been great. And I will see you not next week, but the other week. I don't know what number that is in the calendar, but just check the calendar in 2 weeks. Okay. Bye, and thank you everyone.